Right, so the World Central Kitchen aid worker attack, which killed 7 aid workers, which 3 were British, and which took place on the same day Israel also happened to target Iran's embassy in Damascus, was a drone attack. And that was a drone attack allegedly using British technology. And that was technology that had been obtained by Israel due to their acquisition of a British engineering company. But now some details as to the kind of missiles that were used in that attack has now emerged, and potentially this implicates a second British company now, along with exposing yet another link with the Israeli regime and Israeli arms companies to the Labour Party. Right, so the World Central Kitchen aid worker attack continues to be a topic of news as more details continue to come out in terms of the circumstances of the attack, not least of which surrounding the ordnance used, which in this case we now know to have been a Hermes 450 drone, which are built by Elbit Systems, an Israeli arms company who have numerous sites here in the UK and subsidiaries too, including a certain UAV Engines Limited, whose drone engine design is used in these drones apparently. Now, I covered the details of this story in another video, so I'm not going to go over all of that again here. But suffice it to say that Elbit, having acquired this British company, now means they could be using our technology, or technology that was developed here in this country, the plans, the copyrights, the patents, to build them themselves and equip the drones that we are seeing today. And considering there were 3 British aid workers amongst those 7 that were killed, it's entirely possible that British technology was used against British people, therefore, which is a horrible thought. It shows what a god-awful idea it was to allow arms technology to be bought by other countries after it had been developed by this one. But now we might have another company potentially implicated in this story, at least connected, and we have another Israeli arms manufacturer involved here, and another British company acquired by said Israeli arms firm as this is. And the arms firm this time in question, not Elbit, but Rafael Advanced Defence Systems, being the manufacturer of the missiles that were apparently used in this attack. Now, the missiles have apparently been identified as so-called spike missiles, guided anti-tank missiles, which, as the name and usage implies, they are designed to get through armoured vehicles. Rafael Advanced Defence Systems, unlike Elbit Systems, are completely 100% owned by the Israeli state, a state-owned, nationalised arms manufacturer, in effect, though are still registered as a limited company, and they were born out of Israel's early-day R&D department of government, starting out as a scientific research jobby before it got split into a science development operation and a separate arms development unit, which later ended up becoming Raphael. They're a hugely important company to Israel. They have developed other weaponry, such as the Python air-to-air missiles and the Iron Dome missile defense system Israel used just the other night against the attack from Iran was Raphael tech as well. However, just like Elbit, Raphael have their subsidiaries around the world as well, and that includes the UK, because in 2022, so very, very recently, Raphael acquired 2 defence firms here in the UK from the Australian-based Reese Group, which are Pearson Engineering and Responsive Engineering. Now, Business Live covered this story as a big coup for the UK at the time, since it was known at that point that the British Army had signed a contract with Raphael themselves. The region's proud tradition of defence manufacturing has been given a huge vote of confidence after Reese Group Limited, based in the Armstrong Works on Newcastle Scotswood Road, confirmed the sale of Pearson Engineering and Responsive Engineering to defence contractor Rafael Advanced Defence Systems Limited. Raphael has a strong presence in international defence markets and solid links with the UK, having recently been selected by the British Army to provide the Trophy Active Protection System, a product designed to defeat anti-tank missiles and rockets, saving soldiers' lives. So the British Army now appears to have the solution to the anti-tank weaponry that used against these aid workers at World Central Kitchen, including those 3 Britons, as things stand now, and provided by the same company that built the missiles that targeted those aid workers, apparently. So it would appear anyway. Twisted world. It is Pearson Engineering Limited, based in Newcastle, that I want to focus on here, though, as this is where the Labour Party appears on the scene. Having acquired Pearson Engineering in 2022, Raphael appointed a board of directors, and amongst these people, all appointed on the 7th of October that year, so 1 year to the day before the Hamas incursion into Israel that has led to the instability in the Middle East since at Israel's hands that we now see, including a former British Army officer Lieutenant General Sir Nick Pope on this board, but also a life peer in the House of Commons, Lord John Hutton, Baron Hutton of Furness, and was indeed the former MP for Barrow and Furness, where Keir Starmer has recently been oohing and ahhing over the construction of nuclear submarines, while jumping up and down and saying how much he would absolutely press the big red button. Hutton was a massive Blairite, served in several roles under Blair and Gordon Brown, not least of which latterly as Secretary of Defence. And since standing down as an MP just before the Brown defeat in 2010, he's represented the nuclear industry and just this year became chair of an organisation representing PFI investors, the Association of Infrastructure Investors in Public-Private Partnerships. Quite a little gem then, isn't he? Oh, but he also likes the arts too. You know, he's just all about weaponry and nuclear and missiles. He's also listed as a director for the Hall for Cornwall, again, since 2022. Go figure. Anyway, so we have a Labour life peer appointed to a board of directors of a company, just as it is acquired by Rafael Advanced Defence Systems, itself owned entirely by the Israeli state. So Pearson is now owned by Israel, effectively then, and has a Labour peer on its board. Yet another example of the close ties between Labour and Israel under Starmer's leadership. He hardly blocked a disappointment, did he? And now we know that the parent company here are allegedly the manufacturers of the missiles used in that World Central Kitchen attack. Now, to make it abundantly clear, I'm not suggesting these missiles used in that attack are being built at this facility in Newcastle. The acquisition of Pearson Engineering and Responsive Engineering was to work with the armed forces here in the manufacture and supply of arms intended for the British Army of Israeli design, hence the role on the board of directors of a former British Army officer, I presume. But equally, can we rule it out entirely that these missiles are being built there or could be built there in the future? We know arms are manufactured in this country for export to Israel, so there's a lingering doubt, which we can't prove either way, and our government sure as hell won't tell us, hiding behind national security matters, which could just be code for covering their own backsides, of course. However you wish to look at this, though, in the current climate, the optics are not good. Again, British assets have been sold to Israeli arms firms. This might be to deliver Israeli-designed weaponry or other military paraphernalia for our army, but why do they need to buy our facilities out to do that, taking on all of the assets and patents and copyrights that may come along with that? And why, given they are an illegally occupying nation, are we dealing with them at all? Well, I'm not the first to ask that question, and indeed Pearson has been the scene of protests against Israel too. Palestine Action, for example, occupied the factory for 2 days last May, and they were in court by the October, days before the Hamas incursion, incidentally. So again, great optics in hindsight. And actually today, time of writing, the grassroots campaign group Shut Down Raphael Newcastle are blockading the factory again in protest against the Israeli genocide, with a march planned on the 27th of this month. The place is a source of local shame, clearly, and quite understandably so. I'd be rather put out if such a place, owned by Israel, potentially producing arms that could possibly be being used out there, although we don't know, we can't say for certain, was on my doorstep. Capitalism, it seems, isn't even stymied when it comes to warfare, does it? If you haven't already seen my other video on that other Israeli acquisition story regarding that drone engine of the company that was acquired there by Elbit, do watch this video recommendation next. There seems to be no end of rabbit holes to disappear down at the moment, implicating this country, our politicians, the way the country is run, with support for Israel right now. And I'll hopefully catch you on the next vid. Cheers, folks.